When I was younger, I never really thought much about my Aunt Clara. She was always there at family gatherings, polite and warm, but reserved. She never married, never had children of her own, and people in our family often whispered about her life choices behind her back. Some called her the quiet one, others suggested she just never found the right man, and a few assumed she simply preferred her independence. But one summer, when I was 19, I discovered that Aunt Clara carried a story deep within her heart, a story of love, sacrifice, and courage that changed the way I looked at her forever. It all began when I went to stay with her during my college break. She lived in a charming old house just outside of Charleston, South Carolina, where the streets were lined with mossy oaks and the ocean breeze always carried the smell of saltwater. Clara's home was filled with antiques, photographs, and an air of mystery. The first night I was there, I noticed an old wooden box tucked away in her living room cabinet. It looked worn, like it had traveled through decades of use. When I asked about it, Clara gave me a faint smile and said, "That box carries memories, Sarah. Memories of kept locked away for years." Her tone was final, so I didn't push further. But over the days that followed, I began to notice little things. Sometimes, Clara would sit by the window with a faraway look in her eyes. Other times, she'd gently touch a faded photograph she kept hidden under a stack of books on her shelf. I couldn't help my curiosity, and eventually, she decided it was time to let me in on her secret. One rainy afternoon, Clara invited me to sit with her in the living room. She brewed us both some tea and brought the wooden box to the table. "Sarah," she began softly, "you're old enough to understand that love doesn't always come to us in the way we expect. I want to tell you about someone who meant the world to me, but whom I couldn't have." I leaned closer, heart pounding, as she opened the box. Inside were letters, photographs, and a delicate pressed flower, preserved between two pieces of parchment. Clara held one letter gently in her hands, and as she unfolded it, tears welled in her eyes. "His name was Michael," she whispered. Michael. The name itself seemed to linger in the air like a melody. Clara told me she met him when she was only 24. She had just started teaching at a local high school, full of dreams and determination. Michael was a fellow teacher, a history instructor with a passion for telling stories of the past. He was charismatic, funny, and kind. Students adored him, and Clara found herself drawn to him in a way she hadn't experienced before. The two became close colleagues first, often sharing lunch breaks and conversations in the teacher's lounge. Michael had an easy way of making people feel seen, and for Clara, who was shy and introverted, his warmth was like sunlight breaking through clouds. They began taking long walks after school, talking about everything from literature to the meaning of life. "I never planned to fall in love with him," Clara admitted as she stared into the flickering candlelight of that rainy afternoon. "But love doesn't ask for permission, it just happens." Their relationship blossomed quietly. It was filled with little moments, exchanging notes, staying late at the school library to prepare lessons together, sneaking glances across the classroom during meetings. Clara's face softened as she spoke, her words carrying the sweetness of nostalgia. But then, her expression darkened. "There was a reason I never told anyone," she said gravely. "Michael was married." My breath caught. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. Clara quickly added, "It wasn't what people think. His marriage, it was broken long before I came into the picture. He and his wife lived separate lives under the same roof. He stayed because of his children. He was a father before anything else." She explained how torn Michael had been. He loved his children deeply, but he also loved Clara in a way that filled his life with joy and meaning. They dreamed of a future together, but reality stood in their way. The town they lived in was small, the kind where everyone knew everyone else's business. If word got out, it would ruin his reputation and hers. Still, their love grew. They found strength in stolen moments, laughter in quiet corners, and comfort in the little things, like holding hands under the stars or exchanging secret letters hidden in books. Clara pulled out one of the letters from the box and handed it to me. The handwriting was elegant, masculine, and heartfelt. "My dearest Clara," it began, "I don't know what tomorrow holds, but I know that today, I love you more than words can ever say." As I read the letter, I felt the depth of Michael's emotions. It was pure, aching, and filled with the kind of devotion that made my chest tighten. But their love was not without pain. Clara told me about the countless nights she cried, knowing Michael would go home to another woman. She hated herself for the situation, yet she couldn't deny what her heart felt. Michael never promised to leave his family, he couldn't. Aunt Clara never asked him to. Their love existed in a fragile balance, one built on courage, sacrifice, and the bittersweet acceptance that sometimes, love isn't about possession but about cherishing what you have, even if it's fleeting. Years passed, and eventually, Michael's children grew older. He began to talk about a future where he and Clara might be together openly. But before that future could arrive, tragedy struck. Michael fell ill. The words hung heavy in the room as Clara told me this part of the story. Her voice trembled as she described his decline, how his laughter grew faint, his energy drained, and yet he never stopped writing to her, never stopped reminding her that she was his light. He passed away before they could live the life they had dreamed of. Clara paused, clutching the letter tightly in her hands, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. I lost him, Sarah. And I lost the chance to tell the world how much I loved him. But I carry him here. She pressed her hand against her heart. In that moment, I understood why she never married, why she never spoke about her past. Her love story wasn't one of happy endings, but of courage, the courage to love despite the odds, the courage to carry heartbreak with grace, and the courage to remember someone not for the life they couldn't share but for the love that was real, even in secrecy. As I sat across from her, I felt an overwhelming respect for my aunt. Her story wasn't scandalous, it was human. It was about love in its rawest form, complicated, imperfect, yet profoundly beautiful. When Clara finally closed the wooden box, she smiled at me through her tears. Now you know why I never settled, why I chose this life. My love story may have been hidden, but it was mine. And I'll treasure it forever. That summer changed me. I learned that love isn't always about what the world approves of, it's about what the heart knows to be true. Aunt Clara's story taught me that sometimes, the most powerful love is the one that doesn't end with a wedding or a white picket fence, but with a memory carried faithfully through time. And every time I looked at her after that, I no longer saw just the quiet aunt. I saw a woman who had loved deeply, bravely, and beautifully.